Hey guys, today I'll be speed reviewing some brand new drugstore makeup, and while some of these could be considered high-end level products, other ones are just not worth your money. So that's what we're gonna find out today. I've been testing all of these products out for about a week, so these aren't first impressions. So let's just dive right into it. I have a new foundation stick from ColourPop. This is their Pretty Fresh Tinted Foundation Balm. I got this in PR earlier this week. It comes in 18 shades, and it claims to be a creamy, skincare-infused tinted balm stick that melts like a dream for a blurring second skin finish. It's supposed to glide onto your skin for buildable light to medium coverage that's supposed to feel like nothing. It contains hyaluronic acid, peptides, niacinamide, so I guess that's where the skincare benefits come in. And I just want to note that those three ingredients are actually near the bottom of the ingredient list, so they're not super high up there. In the front of the ingredient list, we have dimethicone, we have silica, so those are products that are going to feel really smoothing on your skin, and it's probably where the blurring aspect comes in. So they sent me 6 shades. They sent the 3 fair shades and then the 3 light shades. And as you can see in the shade chart, the light shades actually look a little bit too deep and definitely too warm for me, and they do look that way in person as well. So I didn't even open those. I'm just gonna put them in my donation box. But I found that interesting because usually I wear the light shades in a range rather than the fair. Those are usually too light for me. So I feel like this foundation range in general skews a little bit darker. So I just wanted to show you the application of these. I did test out all 3 shades on my face so that you could see what the colors look like. So first we have Fair 1, which I think is a little bit too light for me. Then we had Fair 3, which is pretty darn near perfect. It even has a cool undertone, which I was really thrilled about. And then Fair 4 is similar to 3, but it's warmer and not quite the right match. So I think out of all these options, Fair 3 is going to be the best bet. So I'll just quickly show you a close-up application. This has a really silky, smooth feel. It's truly very lightweight, like they claim. It feels like almost nothing, and it doesn't have that thicker cream texture that some foundation sticks have. I think it blends out a little bit more sheer, and I can really feel the silkiness of the dimethicone and silica in the formula. It has a lot of glide. It blends out super easily with almost no effort. And the formula does remind me a lot of the new Milani skin tint stick, except I think I like the undertones of the ColourPop one a little bit more because this does have that little bit of a cooler undertone. It matches me better. I thought the Milani shades were just a little too yellow. When I look at the side with the foundation versus without, I think this did a great job of covering up my sunspots and redness. It's not full coverage by any means, but I got a solid light to medium out of it. And in this clip, I also was blending with my fingers, which is my preferred method when it comes to using foundation sticks, but I have since used this with a brush, and I find that it works really well that way too. Overall, I would say this is a nice formula for my dry skin. I don't find that it adds a ton of moisture, but also it does feel very silky. So I would just maybe make sure that you're moisturized well before applying this if you have drier skin. But I didn't notice it clinging to any texture, any dry patches. It didn't look patchy in any way. It didn't look flaky. I actually did like the way that it looked initially, and as the day went on, it started to sink in and sort of meld with my skin, and it looked even better than it did in the beginning. I also think it wears really well. I didn't notice it breaking up on me. It lasted pretty much the entire day, so I was really happy with the wear time. Again, I do have dry skin, and I'm not living in a humid climate right now. It's very dry, so that may change as we head into the warmer weather. I don't know if this is going to break up more in humidity, but at least now being mostly indoors and not putting this through that many paces during the day, it holds up really well. So if you live in a different climate than I do, or if you have more oily skin, I would love to hear from you if you've tried this, and I'd love to hear how this worked on you versus how it held up on me. I do think this reminds me a lot of the Milani one, and personally, I've been enjoying this lighter crop of foundation sticks. I have found in the past that they're usually very thick, really heavy, and sometimes can look unnatural or cakey on your skin. So I like that these are a little thinner and they tend to blend out more easily. And in general, they're just much more forgiving and they look a little bit more natural, especially when it comes to having drier or more mature skin. if you have imperfections and things. These don't show them nearly as much as the older foundation sticks used to. So I really like this so far. I do think it is worth checking out. Next up, I have new things from Morphe. I have these brand new palettes that they had come out with. They also sent these to me in PR as well. So we have two different ones. There is Forbidden Honey and Pulp Fantasy. These are $15 each. I'll just quickly show you some close-ups and some swatches. These are part of that collection that has the baked shadow in the center, which they call their molten metal formula. And this first one, Pulp Fantasy, has mostly taupes and browns, but also some pastels running down the center of the palette. You have a pale pink, a pistachio green, and a lavender shade. And I thought this one swatched fine. The shadows had a decent amount of pigmentation. The shimmers are metallic, so they're not super glittery or shiny, but they give more of a soft sheen to your eyes. I wore this palette a while back when I first got them, and it was in this video right here. I used the pistachio shade on my lid, and I did wet the shadow first, which is supposed to give it more impact. If you apply it dry, it comes off very sheer. So I did feel like it showed up nicely on my eyes. Just keep in mind, these are not going to sparkle as much as a lot of the shadows that we're seeing on the market today, and that could be more suited to your preferences if you're not a fan of glitter. And in that case, I think you might enjoy these palettes a lot. But if you like a really ultra shiny, wet looking shadow, then you may want to go ahead and skip these. Then the other palette we have is Forbidden Honey, and this one is warmer toned and it has more peaches and pinks mixed with neutrals. And I thought this one actually swatched a little bit better than Pulp Fantasy, but in my experience, shades like this always seem to kind of swatch better than the cooler tones or pastels, so it wasn't a big surprise to me. But I do want to show you this palette in use so that you can see how it actually applies to the eyes. And I think these came off nicely pigmented. They blended really easily. The mattes have a smooth, lightweight feel. And while there was a little bit of powder kick up, I felt like it was pretty minimal. It was hardly there. Also, I didn't find the deeper shades looked patchy, which was great as well. Basically, no complaints with the matte shades. I think they perform great. And when it comes to the shimmers, I think they were similar to the ones in the other palette. They're metallic, but they almost come off closer to satin. They're not like a super shiny or impactful metallic shadow, which again, if you have textured eyelids and you tend to avoid a ton of shimmer or glitter, you might prefer a formula like this. Even when you wet the molten shadow in the center of the palette, it didn't come off as particularly impactful, which is interesting because when Morphe first came out with this new formula with those molten shades, I got the cooler tone palette. I forget what it was called, but I actually thought that it looked very shiny on my eyes. For some reason, I just wasn't getting that with these. So I don't know what it is about these two new palettes. I didn't find them to be particularly impressive. I felt like they were just okay. And I think these color stories are pretty dupable in our collections. I'm sure most of us have similar colors to these already. So these days, because there's such a variety of eyeshadow out there on the market, I find that a palette has to be really, really impressive for me to want to spend my money on it. And if I hadn't received these in PR, I don't think I would run right out and purchase them. I just don't find the formula to be better than, let's say, ColourPop, so I would rather just maybe purchase something from their line instead. Also from Morphe, we have new color correctors and concealers. So these are called the Wake Up Artist Under Eye Correcting Concealer. They're $12. They come in 24 shades. 4 of them are correctors, and then there are 20 concealer shades. So they sent me all 4 shades of the corrector, and then they showed me the concealer as well. So I just want to show you what those look like up close. They claim to brighten, correct, and smooth the appearance of your under eyes with a hydrating, non-drying formula, and they're supposed to give comfortable all-day wear. These have arnica, sweet potato extract, mushroom, hyaluronic acid, and glycerin to hydrate your skin. And these I actually really love. I was so impressed with this formula. In particular, I've been using this lightest color corrector shade, which is called Blossom. It's kind of a pale pink, and I find that I can use this as a concealer and color corrector in one because it doesn't look particularly pink, but it corrects enough to just brighten my under eyes. And I find that once I use this, I don't really need to use concealer afterwards. So I'll show you just a close-up of me using this. Again, this is a really pale pink for fair to light skin tones, and I just put a dab on the outer corner of my eye where I tend to have more darkness, and I blended it out with the new Morphe concealer brush. Like I said, I was so impressed with this formula. Technically, this is a concealer, but it has that pink tone to correct, so it kind of covers and corrects all in one. And when I was finished with this one eye, I didn't feel like I had to use concealer on top of it. I thought it just brightened everything up and made this eye look so much more even toned and smooth compared to the other eye. And I just loved how hydrating this formula was as well. It didn't look dry under my eyes, even though this is more medium to full coverage. It didn't settle into my fine lines or look cakey. It's a super, super smooth formula, and it reminds me a lot of the Catrice True Skin Concealer, which is one of my favorites. I felt like this one was very, very close to that. Even when you look really close up, it looks super undetectable. I can't see the makeup, it just looks like my skin, which is ideal. It has a perfect satin, skin-like finish. So I just love this. They're a beautiful formula and a really big surprise. I wasn't expecting to love this nearly as much as I do. The formula feels really high-end, and I find that concealer can be very tricky for me because when you have dry skin and then on top of that, more mature skin with fine lines, they can settle into those lines under your eyes. They can start to look dry, cakey, and sometimes thick and heavy, especially when it comes to more high coverage type formulas. This one almost looked smoother where I put it, which I was just kind of baffled by. So this is another product I thought was super nice. It is $12, so it's more expensive than the Catrice True Skin Concealer. If you love that one, I find this one to be really similar, and you don't have to spend the extra money on this, but I like that this comes in the color correcting formulas, because something with a pink tone if you have fair skin, or a peachy or orange tone if you go, to a deeper shade range, can work even harder than a normal concealer because it can do the color correcting at the same time. So with this one, I find it to be even a little bit more brightening than the Catrice one, but I was really just comparing it to the formula versus the color of that. So for that reason alone, it could be worth spending a couple of extra dollars on this formula instead. Another new product from Morphe are these new finishing powders, and these are called the Cloudlight Soft Glow Veil. These are $16. They come in 4 shades. And again, this is a finishing powder, not a setting powder, so it's supposed to give your skin that really weightless glow, and it's going to optically blur fine lines, pores, and texture, but it's not necessarily going to help control oil like a setting powder would. So again, a finishing powder is like something like the Hourglass ambient lighting powders. It's something that you dust on afterwards just to give your skin that little bit of like a satin sheen. So this formula contains squalane, shea butter, and hyaluronic acid. And you guys, when I first felt these, I actually gasped because they are one of the smoothest powders I think I've ever felt ever. They feel just like satin, and instead of that powdery feel, they almost feel creamy in a way, except it's a powder. Like, it's so hard to describe the way that these feel. But when I used the lightest shade called Dawn, it gave my skin just the slightest hint of a glow. There's no shimmer, no glitter whatsoever. It actually reminds me of Dim Light from Hourglass. If you've ever tried that one, all it does is prevent your skin from looking flat or dull, but it doesn't actually add shimmer like a highlighter would. And I know that some of the Hourglass powders do have a little bit of sparkle and like tiny little glitter particles, but Dim Light doesn't. So if you've ever tried that one, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's just so subtle. It's not going to be a really obvious thing, but it's just going to help your skin to kind of catch the light as you turn your head. And like I said, prevent it from looking matte like a setting powder would. It's this super subtle, almost pearly effect versus shimmery. So if you are looking for something to add just that little hint of a glow back to your skin, but you don't want the drying finish of a setting powder, especially if you are more dry like I am, I think you will really love these. They absolutely do not look powdery on your skin at all. They just kind of melt right in and just give that tiny little bit of glow, but it's nothing like a highlighter would be. So these are so beautiful. And again, it's just a very high-end feeling formula. So definitely check these out. All right, next we have some new lip products from Hard Candy. So there are glossy sticks, blurring sticks, and also a glossy lip stain. So let's start with the glossy ones first. These are called the Lip Shine Lipstick. They're $7.48 each at Walmart. They come in 5 shades. I got 2 of them to try, one that was more of a cool toned pink and then a warmer nude shade. So these have a pointed tip to kind of shape your lips like a lip liner, and then a wider edge to fill your lips in with color. And then they have this glazy finish that's supposed to shine like a gloss. They have shea butter, rosehip oil, oil and argan oil. And they also come with a sharpener on the bottom, so you can sharpen these and keep the tip really precise if you want to. So in a nutshell, these are like a lip liner slash lip crayon slash glossy lip balm all in one. So I'll just show you me applying the two shades that I have. And honestly, I was pretty shocked by how pigmented these are. I started by lining my lips first, and then I started filling them in, and these are so creamy. It was just really easy to fill in the color quickly, but the pigmentation was what really got me, because usually products like this are a little more sheer. They do feel hydrating, similar to a balm, but maybe not quite as melty as something like the Tarte Maracuja Juicy Lips, because these still hold their shape. They're more like a lip crayon, so they're not going to melt all over, but they still have that slightly glossy finish. And for me, these went on more like a full coverage lipstick versus a glossy balm. And because they're emollient, they are not transfer proof, so they are going to wear off throughout the day. I find that they maybe last slightly longer than a lot of the glossy balms that are out there with the click pen style applicator. I think those wear away probably faster than these do, but they're still not a long wearing formula. So just keep that in mind. They'll hold on for a little bit, but they're going to come off with eating and drinking and just natural wear. They do have a scent. They kind of smell like baby powder and vanilla. Honestly, it's not my favorite. It has that sweetness to it, but there's also that weird sort of baby powder scent, which is not my favorite. I wish they would have just maybe done like a straight up vanilla. Not a fan of the scent, but I didn't find that I really smelled it once it was on my lips. So overall, I think these are nice. I like how moisturizing they are, and that they're as pigmented as a traditional lipstick, but with that glossy feel. At the same time though, I think you have to be careful with these maybe migrating outside of your lip line, because they're so emollient, especially maybe if you're getting the darker shades, you might notice it a little bit more. I find that with the more sheer glossy balms like the Tarte one, if it migrates a little bit, you're not as likely to notice it, but with something high pigment like this, you are going to see if it gets on your teeth, if it gets above your lip line. So I feel like there are pros and cons to a formula like this, but the good news is they are really inexpensive. If you want to buy one and try out the formula, it's not going to break the bank. I'm just kind of so-so on this one. I feel like it's okay. Another new lip product from Hard Candy, and I've seen people already reviewing these. I saw Emily Noel talk about them. I saw Miranda from Slash Beauty did a whole video on these. So these are also $7.48 each. They come in 5 shades, and these reminded me exactly of a Maybelline lip product that was out a while ago. And I know Miranda had mentioned this in her video too. They had the sponge tip applicator on one side to kind of smudge it, and then the lipstick on the other. So this isn't really a new concept. It's been done before at the drugstore, but I'll just show you some swatches quick. These are supposed to give you lived-in color and a cloudy, soft, blurred effect to your lips. It has a velvety, smooth, cushiony texture, a soft, comfortable feel. They have shea butter, grapeseed oil, avocado oil, and they say that these are inspired by blotting your lipstick with a tissue. So that's what the little blotting tool on the end is used for. And yes, you can do that with any lip color if you want to put something on and then blot it with a tissue and get the same sort of result. But it is nice to have this little smudger on there just to kind of do it really quickly and easily. So I'll show you what the colors look like on me. The first one I got is Adore, and this is the pink shade. These are also extremely pigmented. They lay down a ton of color in just one swipe, and they have that very weightless, silky feel and an instant powdery dry down, but somehow they don't feel drying on your lips. So I left this color alone without blotting so you can see what it looks like without doing that. But then for the next shade, Smitten, I decided to blot it out so you can see what that looks like. So I applied it, and then I ended up just taking that sponge tip applicator and running it over my lips. And now I get why these are so pigmented, because when you blot them, it sort of takes off a layer of the color, but because they have all that pigment, there's still plenty of color left behind. So I do actually prefer these blotted out rather than not. I think they just look a little bit more casual and less structured. And just a couple wear time notes with these. I find that they do slightly transfer when you first apply them. They transfer more if you don't blot it. If you do blot, I think it kind of takes that top layer off. So there's very minimal transfer onto cups or glasses or bottles, whatever you happen to be drinking. And then after the the initial transfer, I find that the rest of the day, I didn't see it coming off at all, but they do wear away fairly quickly. This isn't some sort of really long lip stain. I found that after like 2 hours, I didn't really notice much color left behind. And while they did not feel drying at all, I felt like these were very comfortable to wear. They also don't add hydration to your lips. So if you have very dry lips, you might consider putting maybe a balm on top just to give it that little bit of a hydrated feeling. But I felt like these made my lips look really smooth even when I put them on very dry lips. They almost seem to have more of a smoothing effect, which I appreciated, and they don't exaggerate lines or dry patches at all. They just kind of glide over everything. So I did like that. Just keep in mind they're not going to hydrate your lips either. One formula I could say these really remind me of are the Maybelline Super Stay crayons. Remember those? I think they're still around. That is a beautiful formula, really smooth, really silky. Those don't come with a smudger on the other side, but I find that they have that same matte kind of powdery feel, but also very silky and blurring at the same time. So if you like that formula, I think you'll probably enjoy these too. Next up, Hard Candy has some new glossy lip stains, and I was really excited about these. I actually saw them on Hard Candy's Instagram, and that's sort of what sent me over to Walmart looking for these, and then I found the other stuff as well. So these are called the Pop Tint Lip Stain. They're $7.97 each, and they come in 4 colors. I ended up getting Peach Fizz, which is the lightest of the 4, but as you'll see in a few minutes, it's actually not that light on me, but it's super, super pretty. And the claims are that these add a dewy finish to your lips and sets to a natural Your Lips But Better tint. It says that you can put on a single layer for a hint of stain or build it up for a bolder pop of color, and they have squalane, hyaluronic acid, jojoba oil, and acai berry and cherry oil to help add nourishment and lip protection. When I went to apply this for the first time, I found that the applicator, because it's so oversized, it holds a ton of product, so it added a little more color than I was expecting at first. I just ended up applying it to the center of my lips and kind of spreading it out with my finger. Otherwise, it was way too much product to keep using the applicator. And the color ended up being really pretty, almost like a coral, but it was deeper than I was expecting. I still really like it though, and I thought that these reminded me so much of the Cali Ray Super Bloom Lip and Cheek Stains. These are beautiful. I ended up getting all 4 colors because I loved the formula that much. These say you can use them on lips and cheeks, but the formula is so great because it is that lip stain that's completely non-drying. Even as you wear it throughout the day, even when the little bit of shine that they give wears away, they still feel completely comfortable. It's almost like a gel texture, and that's how the Hard Candy ones feel, almost exactly. In fact, because the Hard Candy feels so similar, I tried putting this on my cheeks as well, and it worked beautifully for that. Again, it reminded me so much of the Cali Ray one in just the way that it applied, and it gave that little hint of dewiness to my cheeks. It was really, really beautiful, and it's actually what I'm wearing in the video today. I have it again on my cheeks and on my lips. Now, the one thing that's preventing me from saying that the Hard Candy is a dupe for the Cali Ray is the color selection that you get, because the Hard Candy ones, like I said, this is the lightest shade that it comes in, and then it goes darker from there. Whereas the Cali Ray, I have the shade Heat Wave here. And Heat Wave is like one of the darkest shades that these come in, and it's very similar to the Hard Candy Peach Fizz. So if you want a formula like this, but maybe you have fair skin or you prefer a more subtle lip and cheek look, then the Cali Ray ones I think are gonna be better for you, because they come in, they have a really subtle pale pink, they have a subtle nude color, and like I said, this one is kind of as dark as they go. Whereas the Hard Candy, I haven't tried the other colors, but when I looked at the swatches online, this Peach Fizz one definitely looked like the lightest shade. So I would say the color selection is the biggest difference between them. But if you're looking for something that is very similar in formula to this, I would say the Hard Candy ones are definitely a formula dupe. Now, are they super long lasting? Maybe not as much as a stain that's more drying. Because these have a little bit of emollients, I find that I get pretty good wear time out of them, but they do fade as the day goes on. I would not say these are particularly long wearing. I do get a little bit of a longer wear time out of these than I do out of these blurring ones. These lasted maybe like 2 hours. With this one, I got maybe like 4. I get longer wear time on my cheeks though. That I would say lasted all day, but with my lips, I'm eating and drinking, so that's gonna break it down a little bit faster. But still, if you are a fan of the glossy lip stains, or if you're somebody who has really dry lips and you want a stain, but you don't want it to completely suck all of the moisture out, I think these are a really great option. So anyway, guys, that's what's new in the land of drugstore right now. I would say favorite products, definitely ones to check out, are the ColourPop foundation stick. Really enjoy that a lot. The Morphe concealer correctors and the powder, I think, are also beautiful. And the hard candy lip stain, I think, is really nice. I also really like the hard candy blurring pen, but I would say the glossy ones are kind of a skip for me. I didn't really love this formula. And also these Morphe palettes are just kind of so-so. So anyway, guys, I hope this was helpful, and I'd love to hear from you down in the comments below. If you've tried any of these products, let me know what your thoughts are on them. As always, I want to thank all of you so much for taking time out of your day to watch this video. I truly appreciate it. If you do have some extra time and you'd like to watch some more drugstore reviews, I'll put them right up here so you can check those out next. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in my next video. Take care, guys. Bye.